Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Hold on, let's grab the joke of the day. What kind of birds write letters? Penguins. Son of a bitch, that's funny. All right, hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thanks so much for being here today. Before we begin, I just need to say that the last time I wore braids in a video, a man commented on the video and said he was hungry for Wendy's all of a sudden. And I'd just like you to take that weird attitude and shove it in a drawer and bury it deep inside you, please. Like, I don't need any weird sexual fast food jokes. I don't need it. Just wanted to say that first and foremost. So today's video is going to be my annotation video. It has been long awaited and it has been highly requested. So I have 4 main methods of annotation that I'm gonna walk through with you today. And first off, I think that annotations are super unique to each individual. And some things I say are gonna make sense and they're gonna work for you, and other things might not. I'm gonna leave a list of other booktubers annotation videos down below that I think are wonderful, so that if some of my methods work, great, and if other methods work from them, awesome. But let's get into it because I have 4 main systems and I love to talk, so let's do this thing. All right, so the first type of annotation that I use are Postit Flags. I think that whenever anyone sees the Postit Flags in my videos, this is why the annotation video is so highly requested, because of these little flags. So let me just say, if you've seen a book with these tabs in them and you know I read the book for fun, that's probably the extent of annotating I've done to that book. I actually think that annotating can be really harmful to the reading experience unless you're reading a book for school or for some academic lessons or you're trying to educate yourself. I think make reading as fun as you possibly can and don't give yourself a homework assignment unnecessarily. So that's why a lot of the books you see only have the tabs in them, because it's my way of kind of staying engaged with the book without actually fully annotating it. So just wanted to say that. For example, you might see the book, It, and you think, holy hell, Noelle, Jesus, you annotate every book? You're such an academic, you're such a scholar, you're so smart. I am all those things, but no. But when it comes to reading for fun, just make it as fun as possible. Don't give yourself extra homework assignments just to do it, right? Like, you know, no one else will see your annotations. No one else will think that you're smarter or dumber if you annotate or don't annotate. Like, just make reading fun for yourself. But if you are interested in the color tabs, this is my basic system. I don't have like certain colors for certain things because I feel like I read different books for different reasons. So like the color tabs I'm gonna use in Stephen King's It are a lot different than the color tabs I'm gonna use in George Eliot's Middlemarch. I read Middlemarch for school. I read this for pretty much, it was just for fun, but there were a few annotations in this just because I might write my final thesis on King. So I was kind of doing some light annotating just to be like, oh yeah, cool. Maybe you'll write on this one day, and this is being proactive about your annotations. But I try not to be super strict about the color system because, again, different genres will get different color tabs, and if I'm reading it for school versus if I'm reading it for fun, it'll change what I'm using for color tabs. So, like for example, It, all the green tabs mean Pennywise just showed up. I don't know why, I just felt like doing that. So all the green means Pennywise, all the blue means sadness. There's like suicide discussed in this book, there's family death that's discussed in this book, so blue is for sadness. Orange is for the history of dairy, because the history of dairy is talked about a lot in this book, and I thought, hey, if you ever write a paper on Stephen King, maybe you'll want to know about the history of dairy. I don't know. Pink, I think, was just moments that I really liked. So if you see tabs in a book that I am putting tabs in for fun, it's usually just a way for me to say, that was funny, or you liked that dialogue, or that was interesting, or this made you sad. That's really all it is. Now, when it comes to an academic book like Middlemarch, the tabs meant something very different, and there's not as many of them, because the blue was kind of like the reading assignment of the week. The pink were quotes that I was gonna use in my final essay, so I wanted to make sure that I could find them really easily. The yellow, To be honest, I don't remember. I don't remember what the yellow's for. But what I mean is that each color is gonna mean different things depending on the book. And I think that they're cool because they're just like little visual cues to let you know, hey, Noelle, you wanna remember this part of the book. And that's really all it is. So that is what the color tabs are for. And I hope that was enough explanation for that. If it wasn't, leave questions down below about the color tabs. But yeah, it just kind of changes from book to book. And sometimes that's all I do for books. Sometimes I do the 3 other types of annotating, but color tabs is the first system. The next system are highlighters. Hey, hey. So highlighting. I love my highlighting system. I've really perfected it during my time under the sun as a graduate student. So for highlighting, it's simple, but it's useful. I have 2 favorite types of highlighters. We have just regular highlighters, and I don't actually care what type they are. I just really like them because they are so neon, and oftentimes they don't bleed through the page. Whereas Tombos are my actual favorite types of highlighting pens. I love Tombos. I think they're so great. They come with 2 different tips, so you have like an actual like calligraphy tip, and then you have like a fine tip that you can write with. So I really like that it's dual-sided, but I also really like that the calligraphy tip is so thick that it will saturate the entire line of text. Sometimes when you have a thinner marker like a highlighter, sometimes it only highlights the bottom half of the words, or the top half, or just straight in the middle, and it can get pretty frustrating. So I love Tombow pens. However, if you are going to invest in a Tombow, I highly recommend the pastel or pale shades. Even this purple would make sure that everything is bleeding through the pages. Okay, but enough about the brands. Let's talk about the systems. So for highlighting, I like to just choose 2 colors. That's it, just 2. Because if you're using these color tabs, you already are keeping track of so many colors at once that for highlighting, I like to keep it simple. The first color you use is gonna be your at-home highlighter. This is the highlighting you do when you're reading for homework, or you have questions that you want to ask, or there are quotes that you're really liking when you're reading without the class. Then you have a second highlighter for all the things that are brought up in class. So these are quotes that your professor really liked, or paragraphs that your classmates really wanted to talk about. So I like to stick to 2 because it keeps it simple, and it also just helps because you can think like, hey, when you're looking back on the text and you need to write an essay or something, you can say like, hey, these are things that I really liked, but here's a quote that my professor kept talking about, or here's a paragraph that a fellow classmate who I really admire kept really wanting to talk about, or had really great questions about. And I just think it's great so that when you go back on a book like Middlemarch, which is an absolute beast of a novel, I can look back and I can say, wow, I was really drawn to necks in this book. But my professor really liked this quote on page 412 that focused on this thing. And I just think it's a great system. So yeah, 2 highlighter colors. I don't care which colors they are, I just make sure that I pick 2 and I stay consistent throughout the entire book. That's the same way I am with these tabs. They change from book to book, but I make sure that I'm consistent once I've picked a system for that specific book. So that's highlighting. My third system of annotations are underlining words or circling words, and I use those systems for very different things. Underlining is really just adding extra emphasis to something I've already highlighted. So if I'm reading a chapter and I highlight 10 different quotes, the underline is what I'll do when I go back through the chapter and there's one specific quote that like really stands out to me. I'll underline and highlight something when it's extra important. And maybe that's overkill, but hey, that's what I do. The circling is really where things get more specific. So I will only circle words or very, very short phrases. I don't circle entire sentences. I don't circle entire paragraphs. I make sure that I'm only circling small units of words as a way to contribute to a general theme. So if I'm reading a book that's Gothic, it's the Gothic genre, and I know my professor really likes discussing the Gothic parts of the novel, if I come across a paragraph that's discussing a Gothic church, right? There's one paragraph out of nowhere that's just really focusing on the Gothic elements of a piece of architecture. I will go and circle the words that contribute to the Gothic theme. Is this making sense? So I might find that paragraph and then I'll circle the words dark and dusty and cold and wet and eerie and lonely. Like whatever it is that contributes to Gothic, I will circle. So that way, when I'm going back through my book and my professor's like, hey guys, Gothic was all over this book. Point me to a paragraph where there was a lot of Gothic language. I can say, yeah, page 281, middle of the page, I circled the words dark and cold and dusty and eerie, like whatever it is. And I've just noticed that it helps me keep track of Gothic or just genre language in general. And it ends up impressing the professor because you paid attention to language while reading a book. And that's what really matters. So like this right here, Middlemarch, page 280. Top of the page, I wrote The Anatomy of Self-Consciousness. I think that was a professor thought. I'm not actually that smart, but anyway, that's what's written at the top of the page. And so self-conscious language that I circled in this paragraph is suspected, painful doubt, bitterly, convinced, anxious control. These were either words or short phrases that contributed to self-consciousness or questioning or curiosity. So circling words is a great way to keep yourself organized and make sure that you have actual content to bring up in class. Because a lot of the time at the beginning of class, your professor is just like generally taking the temperature of the room, right? But you know what I mean? Like a professor will kind of sit there and go, what did you guys think of the book this week? And I think it's helpful to kind of have this language or these descriptions kind of locked down when you come into a class, because if genre is brought up, which in my experience, genre is professor's favorite fucking thing to talk about. I think it's great to have circled those words that contributed to an overall genre or theme. So that's circling and underlining. And then the last type of annotation is writing in the margins. And this one's hard to explain because it's unique to every single individual. What I write in the margins will be very different than what you write in the margins. And so I can't really like train or coach you on this because it is going to be very different. I think writing in the margins is especially useful if you have questions. So if you have questions while you're reading, I think writing those in the margins is excellent because it's also like a great way to interact with the text. And it's cool because when you're looking back, you can say to your professor like, hey, on chapter 3, I had this question about Ladislaw, which is a character in this book. But then by chapter 5, I found the answer, and that's on page 345. If we all turn to that now, the answer that I got was this. And so writing questions in the margins, writing exclamations in the margins. Sometimes I like to talk to the text, like I'll laugh at things. I'll write little exclamation points. I'll write smiley faces. I'll write stars. And it's a great way for you to look back on the text and actually see your thoughts on the page. Because highlighting something, like if I look back on this book now, I read it almost a year ago, I highlighted a bunch of things, but I don't know what that meant to me when I read it a year ago. I can just see that it's something interesting, whereas the writing in the margins can really help you see where you were at when you were reading this, however long ago it was. And it also helps in class, right? Because you can actually like write out the questions that you want to ask instead of just highlighting something and just like having to assume like, oh, I forgot what I was actually asking here, but let me think of something. If you write it in the margins, it can really help you stay focused and stay, I don't know what the next word I was going to use was. Really don't know. Stay focused and stay organized. There it is. So writing in the margins, I feel like, is the most time consuming, but it's also the most personal and it's the most beneficial. When you look back through a book that you're using for class, you can see your actual thoughts, your actual questions, just written out in front of you. And with that in mind, I have been getting a few DMs and comments asking me if I would ever do like an annotated book swap with anyone. And this has come up a lot lately, actually, because I think you guys see how much I annotate sometimes and you're interested in kind of swapping it out and seeing what I've written. But because of what I've just said, like how personal I think writing in the margins is, I have no interest in doing that. And I'm not trying to be mean or anything like that, but I just feel like my annotations are so personal and so valuable to me. Like everything that I've written in the margins of Stephen King's It, if I handed that off to anyone, then my thoughts, my questions, my reflections are all someone else's now, right? Like I don't know if I'll ever get the book back or whatever it is. And it's also really personal. It's almost like writing in a diary because you guys can see like how I'm processing a novel, and that's personal to me and it's special to me. So no, unfortunately, I won't be sending out any of my annotated books, but it is a very sweet question and I appreciate it, but it's too special to me. So anyway, so that's it, you guys. Those are the 4 ways that I annotate my books. Again, some of these get all 4 systems, other books get 1 system, some get 2 systems. It just kind of depends on the individual book and what I'm reading it for. Am I reading it for school? Am I reading it for fun? Just kind of depends. But I will just leave you with this tip. Don't annotate your books for fun, if you can help it. The little tabs are fine, because it just keeps you kind of engaged. It's a quick little thing. But writing in the margins and highlighting things and like underlining words and everything, unless you really, really feel like you get positive things out of it, then fine. Just have fun when you read. That's what we need right now. During a pandemic, what we need is as much fun as we can possibly fucking get. But I do hope that this helps. I hope that it especially helps since school is starting up again very soon. So I hope you guys got something out of this video. And if you have any further questions about how I annotate, or if there were some things that were a little unclear, just leave the questions down below and I'll answer them, or I can have like a whole little annotation Q&A in a future reading vlog. So just let me know what you guys would like to see. But yes, thank you guys so much for watching this video and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!